excellent.
If you're like most leaders, you've probably worked in an organization where the same problems keep coming up over and over again, and the same decisions continue to get made over and over again, and then you're just left with the exact same frustrations regardless of the processes that are happening. And then you probably think to yourself, as I have many times, why aren't we getting better? Well, management expert Peter Senge calls them the 7 learning disabilities. These disabilities aren't flaws in individual people, rather they're patterns that prevent systems from growing. He says that in his book, The Fifth Discipline, that these learning disabilities, they sneak into our organization and they silently kill our growth. So today, we're going to discuss each of these dysfunctions, and then we're going to identify how they are keeping your team stuck. And then I'm going to share some practical principles that I believe will help. So welcome to the Mind Your Business podcast, the podcast for whatever business is on your mind. Let's get started.
Well, that's excellent.
Well, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Mind Your Business podcast. If this brings value to your life, do me a favor, like, subscribe, share this with others. If you're listening to the podcast wherever you get your favorite audio, leave a review there because this kicks the algorithm into gear so I can add as much value to as many people as possible. Here's a hard truth. Most teams, most of us people, individuals, we think we're learning. We attend trainings, we have brainstorming sessions, we do performance reviews, we read books, we watch or listen to podcasts. But here's the real question for every single one of us, and it is sobering. Are we actually changing? I call this information without transformation, bringing something in without a change in our life. Think about it. We've got note-taking apps that are full of conference notes and content without any actual change. And this system, this process, this habit that we get into, this cycle, it's dangerous because it's an illusion. It's an illusion that is full of nothing than smoke and mirrors. It makes us feel good. It makes us feel like we're learning something, but in reality, we're not changing at all. I watched this play out on a grand scale in the mid-2000s. Many of you may recall this. Nokia was still dominating, at the time, a large portion of the global phone market. They were the go-to brand in cell phones. Nokia was my very first cell phone, and I can remember sitting playing Snake on that phone. Some of you know what I'm talking about. But behind closed doors, the private image just didn't match the public image. See, employees were really hesitant. They were scared to share bad news that were happening internally. Managers just avoided conflict. Executives, they assumed that the customer loyalty was just going to last forever. And as a result, Nokia just doubled down on an outdated strategy that would eventually leave some of you saying, as you probably are right now, I've never even heard of Nokia before. But meanwhile, Apple, Google, they were shaping the future. And by the time Nokia reacted, it was just too late. The CEO, believe it or not, would later say, we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. Think about that statement. That one statement is a powerful lesson for us all. It perfectly illustrates what happens when teams stop learning. You can follow the rules. You can meet the deadlines. You can stay in your lane, and you can still lose. Not because you lacked talent, but because you lacked awareness. Because sometimes the danger isn't in what you do, it's in what you don't see. Senge describes these learning disabilities as mental models that trap teams. They're not about intelligence, they're just simply about awareness. So let's look at the 7 different learning disabilities, and then let's break down each one of these. Now take note of specific disabilities that may be impacting you personally, your organization, or even the people that you lead. Because I'm also going to give you some practical principles in each one that I do believe will help. So number 1, here's the first learning disability. I am my position. I am my position. This is when people only see their own role, not the larger system. So they only see their specific spot on the team. They say things like this: well, that's not my department. I just do what I'm told, or it's not my job to worry about that. See, when people define themselves only by their title, they stop thinking about how their position impacts an entire organization. A perspective without peripheral vision can be crippling to the entire organization. For example, in 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded because of faulty O-rings. Engineers had expressed their concern about it, but NASA, the leadership didn't connect the dots, and everyone stayed in their lane. No one stepped back to see the entire picture. So you can see that when you ignore all of the details, like we talked about on our last podcast, when you ignore it and you only see what you're doing and what's right in front of you, it can be incredibly dangerous. So here's how you can correct this in your organization. I want you to think systems and not silos. Build a culture of shared ownership. In other words, you have to create a culture that says no one wins unless everyone wins. This just helps to break the "it's not my job" mentality. I want you to help people see that their work helps to fulfill the mission of the organization. Build systems that encourage different departments and individuals to support each other. Encourage cross-training so that people know what other people are doing. So move your culture from silos to system by involving everyone on the team together. The second dysfunction is the enemy is out there. The thought that the enemy is out there. This is blame game central. You've experienced it before, the blame game. This mindset blames external forces for internal problems. This is when it is always someone else's fault. You've heard it. It's the economy, or it's our competitors, or our customers just don't get it. But when we use excuses like this, when we blame just becomes a shield that protects the status quo. Nothing changes. Blackberry is a prime example of this. When Apple launched the iPhone, Blackberry leadership just dismissed it as a toy. You know the Apple story. Apple surged and Blackberry plummeted. Some of you today are going, what was a Blackberry? Blackberry blamed Apple's hype, their customer trends, and even the media. They couldn't see that the real problem because they were saying, well, the enemy's out there somewhere. They couldn't see that the real problem was internal because they were blaming everything that was external. And if you want to stop the blame game in your organization, own the outcome. Create a culture where everyone is free to ask, what's our part in this? What are we doing that contributes to the problem? See, healthy teams don't waste time on trying to blame or find someone to blame. They simply focus on what it is that they can control. Great teams say, what can we do, instead of saying, why won't they fix it? So empower your teams to share the responsibility. That again gets everyone working together and everyone moving in the same direction. Number 3, the illusion of taking charge. The illusion of taking charge. This one sounds good, but it's dangerous. People love to look proactive. Leaders make bold announcements. We're going to restructure a department. We're going to launch new programs. Taking charge, but ultimately ignoring the root of the problem. This would be like a company trying to fix a toxic culture just by changing the company logo and then renovating an office and repainting and putting in new furniture instead of addressing the leadership behavior, the root of it at its core, the culture. It feels like change, but it's just an illusion. So here's my encouragement. I want you to slow down. Ask yourself this question: what problem are we really trying to solve? What is it that is broken that needs to be fixed? You need to get honest before you get busy. This will help you transition from doing busy work to doing your best work. So don't just do something on the surface level, get to the root of it and actually fix the real problem. And then number 4 is fixation on events. We all love quick wins. We love those big moments. It's something like a launch day or meeting our quarterly goals. But short-term thinking keeps us from seeing long-term patterns, and this is important. For example, in education, test scores are the event. But if a school district ignores chronic absenteeism, underfunded schools, and teacher burnout, the scores won't improve. If all they do is focus on results without addressing the system, it's basically like trying to water a dead plant. The goal is balance. You certainly want to see what's right in front of you. That's important, but you don't want to miss the big picture. So step back, look at the trends over time, and ask this question: what patterns are trending? What are some of our metrics trying to tell us? Quick wins aren't bad. They can build morale and they can help spur momentum, but they can't become our focus. So teach your team to look for trends and not just events. If something is continuously unhealthy, what is creating this problem and how do we get to the root of it? And then number 5, it's the parable of the boiled frog. The parable of the boiled frog. Most everyone has heard this at some point in your life. You know, if you throw a frog into boiling water, it jumps out. But if you slowly heat the water, it stays until it dies. And this is the lesson for all of us. Slow decline is dangerous simply because it feels normal. You don't notice that it's happening because it has just become the norm. Kodak is a prime example of this. Kodak invented the first digital camera. They were the pinnacle of the camera business. But as times and technologies went on, they stuck with film because the decline was slow. They just couldn't see past their legacy business. They adopted it too late. They had the technology there. They had someone internally that saw the digital camera and saw what was coming, but they were just too late to it because they were sticking with what always worked. Slowly, the water was heating up and they should have gotten out of the pot. In your team, it sounds something like this. It's just always been this way. This is what we're used to, or that's just how we operate. How many times have you heard that on your team? I want you to get the frog out of the boiling water. So this is my advice. Challenge what you're tolerating. Challenge what it is inside of your organization that you're tolerating. To do this, you need the feedback from everyone that is around you. Feedback is going to be critical. Ask new people that you've hired. Ask what feels odd to you. What stands out as maybe just not right or something that could be done better. Then listen to their fresh perspective. Build feedback loops where it's easy for everyone on your team to provide early warning signs, and then address those concerns. Address what's being said. Address what's being brought to you, because the people on your team doing those roles day in and day out, they know better than anyone else. And if they have the freedom, if they have permission and the confidence to be able to share, you will spot it early on. Even Kodak had the early warning signs, but they chose to leave the frog in the water. And I don't want you to repeat the same mistake. Many of these companies that we're talking about today, that many of you probably don't even remember, it's amazing how it's all connected together, slowly happening from within inside, destroying at a slow pace. And then number 6, it's the delusion of learning from experience. The delusion of learning from experience. Experience alone is not the best teacher. It's evaluated experience that leads to growth. See, many organizations repeat the same mistakes because they never pause to ask this question. What was it that we learned from that? That experience, that success, or even that failure? What did we learn from that? Just because someone has 20 years on the job doesn't mean they have 20 years experience. They may have 1 year of experience simply repeated 20 times. I've worked with customer service teams that would keep handling complaints in the exact same way, even though their satisfaction scores were failing. It sounds crazy when you hear it out loud, but it was because no one was asking what's working and what's not working. What do we need to change? I want your team to learn and to grow. So debrief everything after every campaign, after every project, after every launch, or even every failure. There are 3 things that I want you to ask so that your team will both grow and your team will learn from their experiences. Ask this: what did we plan to happen? What actually happened? And what can we learn from that? What did we plan to happen? What was the objective? What was the outcome? What did we anticipate? Now, let's take our reality. What was it that happened? Did we meet those goals? Did it meet our expectation? Did it look in reality put into practice the way that it did on paper? And now what is it that we can learn from this experience? You either learn some successes, you learn some failures, you learn some things that could be done better. You sharpen yourself every time by asking important questions. See, taking the time to debrief and evaluate, it will force your team to learn. It forces them to sit at the table together, bringing all of this information, all of their perspectives, everyone together so that they can continually learn from what happened. And then number 7, the myth of the management team. The myth of the management team. Most leadership teams aren't really teams. There, I said it. I said the truth that everyone has thought, but no one has said out loud. Most leadership teams aren't really teams. They're a group of individuals who are simply out for themselves. And leaders, that includes you. You may not think this is true for your organization, but it shows up when people nod in agreement and then they complain in the hallway. Some of you may remember the Boeing 737 MAX crashes. Tragic. Well, after investigations, internal emails discovered that engineers had safety concerns about the plane all along. They had concerns about some of the dangers that the 737 MAX presented, but they didn't feel empowered. They didn't feel confident, the ability, the freedom to share those concerns. See, their inability to provide honest feedback and concern, would that help contribute to a tragic disaster? So, if you really desire a team culture, you have got to create a culture of trust and value. Everyone must trust that their feedback is wanted, that there's a desire for it, and that it will be accepted without fear of punishment. They have to feel valued, like what they say actually matters. The strongest teams reward honesty over harmony. The goal for everyone is to learn and to grow, to thrive and not just survive. So here's the truth. Every team has blind spots, but the best teams look for them on purpose. I want to say that again. Every one of your teams has blind spots. There is no perfection, only the pursuit of it. So encourage your team to say, it's okay. We want you to bring your success. We want you to bring your failure, bring it all to the table so that we can all learn together. If you want to build a team that learns, if you want to build a team that grows, and you want to build a team that adapts, start by challenging the assumptions that you're making about how your team works. Don't assume that everything is working as it should, because the only thing worse than failing is thinking you're succeeding when you're really just stuck. And remember, it's not always about a crisis. It can also be a slow decline. Think about that. It's not always a crisis. Sometimes it's just a slow decline. And that is far more dangerous. So if you recognize your team in any of these 7 patterns, don't be discouraged. Awareness is power. Naming the problem is how transformation begins. So if you see an area that you're going to focus on, or you have an area that you've overcome, I would love to hear about it. So for those of you on YouTube, leave a comment and let me know. And I want to say thanks again for tuning in to the Mind Your Business podcast. And if you found this helpful, like, subscribe, share this with a friend, leave a review. And until next time, go and mind your business. And let's build businesses that never stop learning.